Hello.
Welcome everybody. As you're coming in, let us know in the chat where you're visiting us from. I'm loving that we're seeing all these familiar names week after week. We thank you for joining us. It makes us feel better knowing that you guys are enjoying this and you're joining us every week. So feel free to drop in the chat where you're visiting us from. Welcome. I believe it's Delia. If I mispronounce it, I'm sorry. Welcome from Maryland. Oh, Michelle from Maryland too. You guys are very well represented. We'll give it just another minute, let people in, and then we'll get started.
Oh, it says screen is blank.
Oh, Jeff from Michigan, welcome. Mark, okay, because right now you should be able to see both Candace and myself on your screen. I want to say, I think we had this problem last week, but you were able to see the slides last week, correct, in the presentation?
Let's hope so.
Is everybody else able to see us on screen? Or are you guys having the same problem, Mark, is where the screen's black or blank right now?
No issues from.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead. I'm going to switch over to the presentation screen. And this way, Mark, once I do that, maybe you'll be able to see it and you won't have as, there won't be so much of an issue. How about that? Are you able to see that, Mark?
Yes, Mark.
Perfect.
Very good.
All right. Good. Let me go back into this mode. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we still have people coming in. Welcome, everybody. Thank you again for joining us on our virtual vacations. Tonight's destination is Los Cabos. And Candace is going to take us through her trip because she was just there 2 weeks ago. So for those of you who are new to us tonight, just to give you a little bit of background, it's a group, we started with 5 travel agents. We now have 6 who have joined us in to bring you a little bit of an escape with everything going on, since most people are not traveling right now, whether you're not comfortable traveling yet, which is totally cool, or maybe the destination you want to visit isn't open to us yet for travel. We've been providing that little bit of an escape to keep the dream of travel alive and to bring you information, either on places you're already interested in going, or perhaps it's a place you're now wanting to check out. This is the perfect way to do it. So, I guess I should go back and go through the introductions. I'm Maria Stephanopoulos with Ingenious Travel. I'm located in the greater Tampa Bay area. We have Susan Schaefer with Ships and Trips Travel. She's in Middle Tennessee near Nashville. Unfortunately, she's not able to be with us tonight. Same thing with Barbara Oliver with All Together Now Travel and Gail Sherman with Wine Lovers Travel. They're both located in Southern California. We do have Candace Stearns with us tonight, who's going to be taking us on our trip through Cabo. And Angela Isherwood, who I'm not sure if she's on the call or not. She may be popping in later. She is in the greater Milwaukee area or in Lake Country. So, as I mentioned, we started this because we weren't able to travel way back in April. So for some of you have been with us from the beginning, and we're very thankful that you're still with us now. And we hope you continue to be with us as we move forward. To find us online, you can find us in our Facebook group, Take a Virtual Vacation. We also have a YouTube channel. In both locations, you'll be able to find our previously recorded sessions. So if you're not a member of Take a Virtual Vacation, be sure to join. I'll pop this information in the chat in just a little bit. For those of you in Tampa, Middle Tennessee, Detroit, or Lake Country, we have a meetup group, Eat, Drink, Travel. And as places are starting to open up, we will be meeting in person. Technology is fantastic, and I'm very thankful that we're able to meet this way. But really, though, nothing beats being able to meet face to face. Stop sharing my screen with that. So, Candace, let's go ahead and hand it over to you so you can get us started.
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. I am not used to presenting. I'm used to just hanging out with you folks with lots of tourism boards and people listening in. But today I have the privilege of bringing to you my expertise of Los Cabos. I happen to be a travel advisor who does specialize in the Caribbean in all things culinary and romance travel, as well as wellness. And last time we had thrown out to the group if they wanted to hear more about what it's like to travel now, because I just got back from Los Cabos. I was there from October 6th through the 10th on what they affectionately call a familiarization tour, where they ask travel advisors to come in and basically do inspections of resorts and also work with the tour operators and the on-site providers for the client, just so that we have a better idea of exactly what type of service level is being delivered and what the clients can expect. And because we haven't traveled in forever, it seems, I obviously jumped at the opportunity so that I could put together information for my existing clients and my potential clients so they would understand the safety protocols and all of the nuances that come with travel now. Because until we have a vaccine, each government and country has different expectations of how they're reopening their borders and how they're allowing people into their countries. Mexico, to our benefit, is allowing US citizens in. They've been doing that since the 15th of June. They do not require a COVID-19 negative test like a lot of other countries do, but they do have quite a bit of safety protocols and other things that are required when you travel. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk a little bit about, first of all, I'm going to stop my video too so you can focus more on the screen itself. But we're going to focus more a little bit at the beginning of the presentation here about Los Cabos itself. For those of you that are not familiar with Los Cabos, it's on the Pacific side of Mexico, and you can see with the little screen here that it's at the very tip of the peninsula. They also call that the California Sur, the Baja Sur, Baja California Sur. It's referred to a couple of different things. And two of the different cities that are actually in Cabo are San Jose del Cabo, which is where I stayed at LeBlanc Resorts, that area, and then also Cabo San Lucas. They actually are only about 20 minutes apart. So if you're staying in one area, it's very easy to take a cab or hire a car from your resort to go from one area to the other. And each have very unique experiences that they bring. The Sea of Cortez is on the inner side of the peninsula, and that's where all of your swimmable beaches and things like that are at. So those are some areas that a lot of tourists go when they are looking for surfing and the beach scene and those kinds of things. And we'll talk a little more about that as we go through the information here. This next slide, I'm just going to play a really brief video in relationship to Los Cabos and some of the changes that have happened. The tourism board, which I am a member of, is putting out information about what has changed or what's different when you come specifically to Los Cabos, because it's the Los Cabos tourism board, but Mexico in general has some of these rules.
Before you visit, get to know the rules in Los Cabos. These are and always have been the Los Cabos rules.
So that's just a little brief introduction about how they are obviously making sure that all of their people are wearing masks and they're socially distancing. They're obviously requiring all different kinds of other protocols too when you land. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation is what you have to go through as a tourist when you're coming in through the airport. But just to give you some history about the country is that it basically has 3 native indigenous people that are part of the area. The conquistadors actually settled from Spain in Los Cabos in the 1697 timeframe, but the history of the area has always been a port of sea. So there's all kinds of melting pot experiences and cultures that you can experience while you're there. They are well known for their art, their cuisine, fishing, golfing, and all different other kinds of what you would expect in a port, a seaport area. Surfing, diving, snorkeling. There's also, as I mentioned, with the 2 different cities, quite a bit of shopping and art galleries and museums that you can go through as well. When you go there, the national money situation is the peso. Right now, it's about 6.5 pesos for every dollar. They do widely accept the US dollar and actually enjoy having you tip in US currency. So when I actually went to my bank and just basically requested 100 singles. And I used singles pretty much throughout the entire time that I was there for tipping and things of that nature, because they appreciate the US dollar, of course, but you can exchange money either before you go or at the airport. Just keep in mind that if you do exchange money at the airport, you're probably not going to get the best exchange rates. So if you do plan on using pesos while you're there, then be sure to exchange those dollars before you head off. Credit cards are widely accepted, of course. They're going to accept all your major credit cards, including American Express, Discover, and even like diners clubs are accepted at some places. And the ATMs, when you do use the ATMs, they do use a daily exchange rate. So using the ATMs may be better than actually having the hotels exchange the money. So you'll just have to, again, check and see what the charges are, though, for the surcharges on the ATMs. Some other helpful information is they are using 110 volt, which is the same voltage that we use in the United States. So you won't have to have electrical adapters like you do when you go to Europe or Africa or Asian countries. And the climate is more of a tropical desert. They actually refer to the Los Cabos area as where desert meets the sea. It's very, very hot from May through October. And they have their rainy season typically from July through September. There can be hurricanes, obviously, in this area, but the majority of the hurricanes that come through recently have been on the Cancun side or the Eastern Atlantic side. In fact, when I was there, a category 2 had just come through on Wednesday in the Cancun area, but it really didn't affect us in the Los Cabos area at all because we were on the Pacific side of Mexico. That is the famous arch or arches. This is a huge attraction when you go to San Jose de Cabo or the Los Cabos area. And there are lots and lots of sunset cruises in different areas. You can actually go to this particular beach and have a small boat drop you off and hang out in this area. Of course, there aren't any restrooms, so you need to be aware of that, but they will drop you off for a couple hours and come back in some of these sandy beach areas, if that's something that you're interested in. As far as technology and communication, a lot of our local and national providers like AT&T and Verizon and Sprint will allow you to call directly into Mexico in the Los Cabos area without needing any additional charges. Some will just have them as part of their plan, and others you have to pay an extra $10 to add the services on. But most of the hotels and the airport especially all have Wi-Fi for no cost. Some of your hotels will have accelerated Wi-Fi or charge for Wi-Fi. So those are the kinds of things you're going to want to check for when you're booking those resorts, and keep that information in mind. One of the best ways to get around the area is by car. And even if you are in a resort that doesn't have a swimmable beach and you're looking for a swimmable beach to go to or a snorkeling area to go to, you can quickly speak with the concierge at the hotel and either get a taxi or an Uber or even rent a car so that you can actually go to some of these other areas that are really nearby. As I mentioned, the scenery is very much like a desert area, and there are hilly mountainous areas. So it's great for people who like to hike, bike. If you're not a water person, there's plenty of things to do on land as well. You can dial 911 in the Los Cabos area specifically. It's the same emergency number that we dial here in the States. They obviously speak Spanish in Mexico, and English, however, is very, very common. All of your typical tourist resorts and areas where travelers are going to be will definitely have English speaking folks. If you know some Spanish, you can tell they really appreciate and like to help people. Even if you're trying to say words and not saying them right, they do appreciate, and they're very helpful, generous people. The religious the religion in the actual country is largely Catholic, but some of the areas also are Protestant. And from a tourism perspective, again, the people are very, very warm and friendly. And here's another beautiful photo of the arches. And as I mentioned, driving is one of the best ways to get around the area, and it's very safe if you decide you want to rent a car while you're there. One of the most beautiful things that I did when I was there is had one of these lovely massages by the beach front here. And a lot of your hotels are very spa and wellness related and have the ability for couples to have massages together, or you can have one by the beachside and listen to the lovely waves, which is something that I really appreciated while I was there. The culture for Los Cabos is basically a mixture, because they love their music and their art, and they also are very into their cuisine. You're going to see a lot of the food and culture of the area mix some of their traditional indigenous people with some other influences that have come in not only from Spain, but even from Asia. While I was there, because I'm such a foodie, I of course ate at the chef table and also experienced several different restaurants in the area. And I was surprised to see there was very much an Asian flair in some of their foods. Obviously, they have some traditional foods, and we're going to talk more about that. But it was nice to see there was a really good variety of different types of foods and cuisines, as well as art and culture. If you like being on the water, paddleboarding, kayaking, snorkeling, diving, there's all different activities that you can do while you're there. And we're going to go through more of that in a little bit when we get to that part of the presentation. But some of the bucket list places that you'll want to visit are Lovers Beach, Pelican Rock, Cabo Pomo, and El Archo. The El Archo is the arches that you've been seeing already in the presentation. They do have a lot of sea turtles and other marine life in the area. And because they are trying to keep the turtles from being endangered in the area, the giant sea turtles, some of the different resorts, because of the lights that are around the area, have changed their lighting on the property so that the little sea turtles, when they hatch on the beach, don't go the wrong direction. So you'll notice when you're at the resorts on the beach specifically, there'll be a red glow or an orange glow in a lot of the lighting. It won't be that bright fluorescent or blue lighting that you're familiar with here in the cities. And that's to protect the wildlife. If you have family and you like to travel with multi-generational situations or with grandkids or your own children, there are so many different activities all throughout the year. So there's whale watching in the December and January months. Of course, you can snorkel all year round, see the beaches, and they don't call it the desert meets the sea for no reason. They have ATVs and different, like I mentioned, hiking and biking and horseback riding that you can do through the more arid, dry portions on the land, which is more like a desert. So it's a lot of fun. Obviously, one of the favorite foods in Los Cabos is the taco. My favorite is the octopus. And it's a wonderful seafood type taco that's available. Obviously, fish tacos, calamari, steak, they do all different types, but you'll see a lot of the octopi and the mollusks and calamari and that kind of stuff in the area too. If you haven't tried a chocolate clam, this is where you'd want to do it. Shrimp and fish tacos are what they're also known for. Smoked marlin, the camada de pobre, it basically translates to the food for the poor. And it's a seafood type dish that has corn, seafood, rice, and beans in it. They also have tamales, which is a fan favorite for people anywhere in the area, and they have little carts similar to what would be like a food truck that you could try some of these different items. One of my favorite drinks the whole time I was there was the frozen mojito in the iceberg. The frozen mojito, I'm sure you've had regular mojitos, and what they basically do is take a mojito and they blend it and freeze it. The mojito has rum in it. And lime juice are the main ingredients, but it's really yummy. And then you may not have heard of an iceberg, but I learned that they take a margarita, a frozen margarita, and they mix it with the local beer and they serve that. So that's a drink that if you haven't tried, you're going to want to try. And the Palermo is the tequila, lime juice, and squirt or fresca. So it's a grapefruit soda. So that was an interesting drink that I got to try when I was there as well. As I mentioned, you can whale watch during the seasons, and the tourism board information is here. One of the most favorite souvenirs that I brought back was this tamarindo candy for my son, David. He really liked it. It's like chocolate covered toffee almost. It's really, really good. And you can also buy, of course, beach blankets. And a lot of the resorts have specialized soaps, handmade soaps. And I got to bring back from LeBlanc a couple of different scents, lavenders, lemongrass, that kind of thing, that were all handmade actually at the resort itself. And then, of course, when you go to Mexico, tequila and different types of liquors are always popular. If you're a photographer, there are a few places. Flora Farms is a huge farm to table place where you can take different classes to learn how to cook things, or you can actually go through the farm and pick different vegetables and things like that. Beautiful places to take pictures are at the Gallery District or the Land's End, and just a lot of places for photographers to have fun. Getting there, when you actually fly there, you can fly from several different areas. A lot of the airlines right now don't have direct flights just because they're only at 40 to 60% capacity. I'm obviously in Detroit, and our big hub is Delta. I had to fly from Delta to Atlanta and Atlanta to Los Cabos, or Delta took me from Detroit to Mexico City, and from Mexico City I went to Los Cabos. So just depending on where you're going to fly from, if you're flying from the Detroit area or the East Coast, it's going to be anywhere between 4.5 hours or 6 hours, depending. If you're further down in Florida or Dallas, you're only going to probably have about a 3.5 hour flight. And again, that's going to depend if you can get direct flights right now or not. So let's talk about my experience traveling. So I wanted to spend some time telling you about what's going on with the airports and air travel itself. Again, I mentioned I'm from the Detroit area, so Delta is a huge hub. The good news with Delta, as you can see in that upper left-hand corner picture, I had a whole row to myself, which was beautiful. Once I got to Mexico City, however, that was not my experience. Aero Mexico, which is a Sky Alliance partner with Delta, is not blocking middle seats through January. And you see full flights, every seat full like normal. You'll see the gentleman in the middle box on the top row. When I got there, they spray down your luggage and all your stuff with disinfectants. So they're constantly lysoling and disinfecting things. Sometimes they use a salt derivative or an ionization booth. So they have multiple ways that they're sanitizing things. Sometimes it's with chemicals, sometimes it's with salt water, sometimes it's with blue light. It just depends on the particular area that you're in. The airport itself, you'll see in the left-hand corner in the top box, a little mat and some towels. They actually have every traveler walk through different trays of chemicals to sanitize your shoes. So they not only are sanitizing your bags and sanitizing your shoes, but you're wearing masks, they're wearing gloves, and they're going through quite a process. One of the other things to keep in mind for immigration purposes is you have to fill out a COVID questionnaire within 24 hours of you landing in the airport. If you don't fill that information out, and if your travel advisor does not provide you a link to do that, you will spend some time pulled over to the side. They'll pull you out of line and you have to fill out all these forms. So make sure that you check to see what's required and that you fill all that stuff out ahead of time, because it'll save you time going through the TSA checkpoints and things like that. When you fly, it doesn't matter what airline you are on, you will see in the lower bottom corner here some Perel single uses. You'll also see that I have a little bottle of water, Cheez-Its, and some cookies, along with my headphones. That's delivered in a little plastic baggie with gloved, masked airline flight attendants. And that's what you get in lieu of coffee, tea, milk, or soda. So when you're used to having someone come down the aisle at about 15, 20 minutes into the flight to ask you what you want to drink, that doesn't happen anymore. If you're on a plane for over 3 hours, they will deliver one of these little goodie bag kits to you. But that's all you're getting. So if you're a person who needs to eat or have water or something to drink when you're flying, make sure you pick that stuff up after you get through the TSA check-in, because when you go to the check-in, you obviously can't get through TSA with any kind of liquid. So you're going to want to buy any food, snacks, or beverages before you board, if it's under 3 hours, because you won't likely be served anything unless you're in business or first class, where they will serve you beer and wine. And then of course you see me in a mask, because everybody has to have masks. If you don't wear your mask, you will be asked to not go on your trip. And if during the trip you decide you don't want to wear your mask, then they will notify authorities when you land to put you on the no-fly list. So it's very important that you follow the rules and know what the rules are when you go. You'll also see, when I was in Mexico City, in this bottom right-hand corner, there's 3 little booths. When you're in Mexico City, if you haven't traveled through domestic air in Mexico before, you basically are always going to be flying on a smaller plane. So it's similar to the US when you're on a smaller plane with only 2 seats on one side and 1 on the other. You're going to be on very small planes. And this particular airport requires you to also get on a bus. So you'll see there's a bus in the lower left-hand corner, and we all had to get on a certain bus. And if you don't speak Spanish, you should learn your numbers because I had to be on bus ocho. And if I didn't know ocho was 8, there was nothing here telling me it was. So I was luckily able to have some dialogue with people to make sure I was getting on the right bus, because you are put on a bus, you then are driven to the tarmac, and you walk upstairs onto the flight in a lot of cases for these domestic flights. You'll see Delta did a really good job of making sure you knew this was the right bus to get on. But you'll see here in these pictures how, you have to walk upstairs. So if you do have mobility issues, it's important for you to know that when you're taking domestic flights in another country. When I stayed at LeBlanc, this was the standard room. It was beautiful. It was almost 400 square feet. It had a full bath that I had my butler every night draw me a bath with special bath salts and things. They use high-end different amenities, soaps, shampoos, things like that. And you'll see in this circle here in the middle, there's a little sticker that's on this door. All of the resorts in Mexico have sanitization rules now, where they're only at 40 to 50% occupancy, and there's a 72-hour hold between someone checking in and checking out, so that they can go in and sanitize with these ionization misters or salt misters or chemical misters. And they basically take a sticker and put it on the door so that you understand that no one has set foot into this particular room since it's been sanitized and cleaned. They also are, a lot of the resorts have switched over to mobile check-ins where they either have you wear a band like you're at Disney World kind of thing, and it has a little remote that's in there that opens your door and unlocks your door. Or they have a mobile app that you download on your smartphone so that you can get in. This was our check-in area, as you can see up here. There are people in the masks, but when we were there, they gave us something to drink. So we're obviously allowed to take our masks off when we drink. And one of the rules at LeBlanc specifically was we were not, as guests, required to always wear a mask. It was advised that, you know, it's something that they recommend you do, but their staff definitely has to wear masks the whole time that you're there. But we did not have to. Some of the great things that you can do at a lot of the resorts there is horseback ride on the beach. You can have dining on the beach. The particular resort we were at had 4 different pools and an infinity pool that overlooked into the ocean. This particular beach at LeBlanc and all those hotels along this particular beach area that I was staying at do not have a swimmable beach. And people often ask me, why is it not swimmable? Is there something wrong with the water? That's not it at all. This particular part of Los Cabos has a very, very short beachfront. So approximately 5 to 6 feet out where those waves are crashing, the depth goes down to about 40 feet. So there's really strong riptide currents that are really close to the shore. So that's why they don't advise even strong swimmers to swim in this particular beach area. But it was an absolutely beautiful resort. They have weddings there. I took a picture of a couple getting their photo taken for their romantic engagement that they had. Beautiful sunsets. As I mentioned, some of the culture stuff is in the upper right-hand corner where we actually got to see people dancing with fire and all different kinds of things. And then I spent a lot of time in the infinity pool area when I was there and just enjoyed the actual sun and listening to the lovely waves crash onto the beach. That was beautiful. And then, of course, I wouldn't go anywhere without trying a chef's table if it's available. And they had wine pairings with chilies. The whole evening for the chef's dinner was all revolved around the chili. And so every course had some kind of chili that was prepared with it. So even the dessert had jalapenos ground into the biscotti that was served in the dish there. And each had its own wine pairing that would go with it, whether it was a white wine or a red wine. And it was just fantastic. The food was first class the whole time I was there. And this was a fun thing that that I had done.
I forgot the drink. It's a pleasure for me to present it to you. This is what I like to call our signature.
Your signature.
Or signature.
Or signature.
Or we, the Italian restaurant. Not me myself. I'll make everything here. I
Okay.
just serve tables and that's it.
Okay.
What we'll do is roll 1.5 ounces of Di Serrano liquor.
1.5 ounces of Di Serrano.
1 ounce and a half.
1.5.
1 ounce.
Okay.
Right?
And the grappa, how much grappa did you?
1/2 ounce.
1/2 ounce. Very good.
So, grappa, it's an Italian liquor that we get from the skin of the grape. Di Serrano is a sweet liquor that we get from almonds. We put them together to make our affogato. Affogato is an Italian word that translated, the meaning is drown or drowning, okay?
Right.
Which is what we do. We drown an ice cream scoop instead of espresso and some liquor.
Wow. Pretty. Is that espresso?
Let me give you some spoon.
Awesome, thank you.
So that was the espresso liqueur, and then they also made tiramisu. And because of time, I won't play this, but he made this tiramisu at tableside, just like he made that drink for me, and it was just absolutely fantastic. There were 7 different restaurants at LeBlanc. One was an Italian, one was a French, one was an Asian sushi bar. Another one was an international. There was a Lebanese, a Mediterranean, and then your typical American fare. And it was just absolutely fantastic 5-star dining. One of the experiences that I had when I was there is I took advantage of one of the sunset cruises that took you out to the arch. You could snorkel or scuba dive earlier in the day, and then you hopped on a boat and they took you out to the arch area, and they fed you a nice little lunch in one of those little bento boxes there, different chips and guacamole and pasta and stuff. And it just was a fantastic day in town with all the different activities, and I got to see the downtown area, and it was just great. And that, I think, wraps up all of the activities that I did. So at this point, let me just stop sharing my screen. And I think Maria had some stuff she wanted to share as well.
I do. Before we get that though, we do have a question from Jeffrey asking about what bank gives us currency at the ATM. What banks did you see represented there? Were there any?
I saw Chase, Bank of America. Who else? That first symbol I saw too. First National. Don't quote me, but quite a few. The Visa and the MasterCard logos were available too. But I do know that they charge an additional surcharge if you use the credit card side of it.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen because now that, well, first of all, are there any questions for Candace about her particular trip and like what she went through either with the airline, the transportation to and from the resort? Any other questions on that before I go into some of the other countries that are currently open? Well, if you think of them while I'm going over some of the other countries, please drop them into the chat. All right, let me share my screen really quick here. Okay, so now, as you'll notice, I'm sorry?
I just saw something come through about what Cabo San Lucas is like.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you went into the town, you had to go drive through the town, right, to get for your sunset cruise?
Yes, and when I went there, it was a little sad. The downtown area was pretty deserted. I think obviously because of the whole COVID situation, there wasn't a whole lot of hustle and bustle like you would normally see, like the Senior Frog and some of the other bars and restaurants weren't open. Just the particular areas that we were going to with like Cabo Adventures and some of the other tour operators that were open. So that was one of the things that I thought was, kind of unfortunate. But I felt totally safe as a single lady. I went by myself, not with anybody else. And it was, of course, all booked through the tour operator. So, I knew exactly where I was going and who I was going with and all that kind of stuff. But as a single woman, I did not have any security worries at all. And then
There's another question here about any worry about border closings once in Mexico.
So I personally did not feel concerned at all, just because I know Mexico's been open since June. Every state obviously has concerns, because when you come back, depending on the state that you're at, you might have quarantine rules as a US citizen in a local municipality. But when I was there, I wasn't worried about the United States government closing our borders, if that's what you mean. I wasn't worried about that at all.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm just going to go over some information about these additional countries. I included Hawaii in here because they have similar restrictions to the countries that are shown on the screen. Most of these countries have between a 48-hour and 96-hour window to take and receive your negative COVID results upon entry. There are a few other places that are open, like Aruba, for example. Now, they require you to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of entry, but they're still going to test you when you get there, and that's $75 a person. You have to quarantine until your results are, until you get your results, and that could be anywhere from 6 to 8 hours or up to 24 to 48 hours, depending on if they're backed up. Now, if you're going to French Polynesia and Tahiti, for example, and you haven't had a chance to get a COVID test, there is a station in the Tom Bradley terminal of LAX that will do your COVID test for you there. Now, if you test positive, that's a whole other issue, but as long as it's negative, you take your results and you go through and you don't have an issue. Like St. Lucia, for example.
I would like to throw in at that very point, because we are both obviously travel advisors. If you haven't purchased insurance in the past, now is the time for you to do that. When you travel now, if you're going to these countries that require COVID negative tests, if you have travel insurance and you test positive, that is a health condition that's going to be covered under your most of your insurance policies. Of course, you have to check the policy, and work with your advisor and the insurance company, but those would be reasons for you to get your dollars back. Because if you're going to the French Polynesian, Bora Bora, Tahiti, that kind of thing, you get there and you test positive at LAX, you aren't getting on the plane. And in fact, you're quarantining in LAX, and you're going to want to make sure that you don't lose all the dollars you spent on your vacation. So just a little advice.
Yeah, plus any money that you're spending on quarantining in place while you're in LA.
Right.
Now, some destinations will require that you also purchase insurance from them on top of having your regular insurance. And there are a lot of countries now that are requiring that you have some sort of travel insurance, not necessarily purchased through them, but through a third party here in the States, which if it's not us as your travel advisors, whoever you book your travel through, we'll be able to let you know if that is a requirement of the country you're visiting. And unfortunately, it's, like Candace was mentioning, it's not optional anymore. It really just isn't.
And two, you want to make sure when you're buying the insurance that you have like a MediJet plan or a policy that if you're asymptomatic and you test positive for COVID, your US airlines are not going to let you on the plane because you're a level 3 contagion. But you can buy insurance where you can call them up and they will privately jet you back home, so you don't have to quarantine if you pay for that particular kind of insurance. So those are the kinds of things you have to think about now, because you could be asymptomatic and not even know you have COVID and then be testing positive, unfortunately.
Yeah, and honestly, that's something that your travel advisor should go over with you depending on your destination. As far as what's required for where you're visiting, both what you need in advance and what to know for when you get there. Like even in St. Lucia, they're open. You are required to have a negative COVID test, but there are only certain resorts that you're allowed to stay at while there. And again, that's something we can go over with you when you are ready to book your travel.
And that's how the Maldives is too. I'm going to be going to the Maldives on Saturday. I'm becoming quite the traveler. My husband and I are celebrating 20 years of marriage, and we are healthy and happy, and we're going to the Maldives. So they're one of those countries that you can only, when you go through the immigration area with them, when you get into the country, they check to make sure you're at a certified property, if you will, and then you have to stay at that property.
Yeah, something else to consider too, for those of you that are going to be traveling, if you do want to do it on your own, which that's your prerogative to do, I don't recommend it, especially now, but you need to be careful too where you're going to get your PCR test from. They are not all created equal, and for some destinations, they will not allow certain types of tests.
Yeah,
So
a lot of the rapid
that in
tests are
mind.
not being allowed. You have to have, they call it a PCR test, and from city to city, people are like, what's a PCR test? They have acronyms for everything. But a lot of the rapid tests that you get in 15 or 20 minutes are not, the governmental entities, for whatever reason, are not accepting them.
Yeah. In most locations, if you've got a Walgreens or a CVS, check with them. Most of those tests are acceptable. But if you're not sure, check with your travel advisor. They should hopefully have a resource to let you know where in your area you can go to for testing. And now keep in mind, another reason to have insurance, depending on where you live, the time it takes to get your results back may not qualify you in that window. And you don't want to be ready to go and then not get your test back in time, and then you can't board your plane and there goes your trip.
Right.
Any other questions now that we've scared the bejesus out of you for traveling?
It really wasn't that bad. I had a fantastic time. It was so much fun to be able to hop on a plane and go somewhere. It was a great experience. Everybody was so welcoming. Everybody is so wanting, tourism to return. They want us back as much as we want to go.
So for those of you who are still with us tonight, how many of you are ready to travel? You just write me in the chat.
Jeff is.
So who's taking Jeff on vacation?
I'm encouraging you, Jeff. Get back out there.
No way. Okay. Yeah, Mark says no way, and that's okay. Because really, you've got to feel comfortable going. And if you're not, wait, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Everybody has a different comfort level, especially depending on your own personal health too. So.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, if there are no other questions for tonight, we'll get ready to wrap it up. Thank you again. Oh, Kiana's ready to travel too. Cool. Well, we're hoping that this is all going to clear up sooner than later. I mean, 2020 has been a year. And I think I've heard something earlier today. It's like the 6th or 7th iteration of 2020. So, but thank you all for joining us tonight. Next week, we are going to New Zealand. We have a rep from the New Zealand Tourist Board that's going to be with us talking about all things New Zealand. And for those of you who are sci-fi fans, we're going to talk about Hobbiton, the movie set where the Shire was filmed. We're also going to hopefully be able to visit the Weta Cave, which is a special effects company in Wellington, New Zealand that does special effects for the majority of the sci-fi movies that get produced. So that's pretty cool. We're going to talk about some things that are going on now down there as well. And hopefully we'll find out when they're going to be opening their borders. For those of you who have not yet joined the Facebook group or have not seen yet on Eventbrite, we also have the following 2-week set. November 3rd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern. It's a different time. We are going to have the tourism board from Poland joining us. And on the 10th of November at 8 o'clock again Eastern time, we will be visiting Chile. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I just realized I never put our information in the chat. So let me do that really quick of where you can find us. And I'll give you a second so that if you want to get that information down, you can. In the chat area to the right of where it says to the panelists and attendees, you'll see a box with 3 dots in it. If you click on that, you should see the option to save chat. You can save your chat and it'll put it right into a folder for you on your computer. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks for having me this week.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us, Candace, because for those of us who haven't traveled yet, you know, it's nice to hear about what the experience actually is like.
Right. And you just have to pack your patience, especially with the airlines, because they're still on skeleton crews. And like I mentioned to Jeff, they, you know, when you do get to a destination, you're not going to see all the restaurants open, all the hustle bustle stuff. If you like traveling with more subdued, no crowds, those kinds of things, now is the time.
Yeah, and really, you know, to piggyback on that, this is when everybody's really, really being diligent. You know, so this is when they're really following what they say they're supposed to be doing at the resorts in your, you know, your transportation back and forth.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why I really wanted to show those pics. I mean, my bags were wiped down 3 times before I even got to the hotel. So I felt like they were good.
Any info or seminar in Egypt? We had done something with a river cruise on Egypt, but yes, we are trying to do that. Yeah. Also, if you have any other destinations you'd like to see us cover, please let us know. We're working with the various tour operators. My biggest challenge for that is going to be find somebody who is either A, has a rep here in the States for it, or B, because of the time difference, is willing to stay up to do it either, you know, our evening or morning, depending on what, you know, their schedule is like time-wise. So that is the one real challenge with travel, is not getting screwed up with the time differences.
We're all in a different zone.
That we are. But yeah, I'll see what we can do for Egypt for you, Jess.
I may not be on because Maldives is 9 hours ahead. It'll be 2 in the morning next time you guys meet next week.
Well, that just means you're going to have to catch the replay. And again, all the recorded sessions are in the Take a Virtual Vacation Facebook group and on YouTube. And I posted both of those links in the chat.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for joining us. And we will see you next week.